See, the Adriatic South Mission started out as the Tirana, Albania mission. And it opened, I believe, in 1990, around there. And that was around the time when the communist regime fell. Albania had been under a communist dictatorship for about 40, 50 years. And when that fell, they decided to put in a type of democracy. And so Albania was under a huge change, and still is changing constantly. The people were learning how to interact with everyone around them because they had been walled off. And so they started importing. They started to try to export goods. And there was a huge social shift from us, our country, no one else, to suddenly we need to be a part of this world. And it was really interesting as the mission opened. Shortly thereafter, it was blessed and dedicated and opened as a mission field. We flooded in with lots of other missionaries from other faiths to begin to preach the gospel. And the Albanians decided to revert back to the religion they were before communism began, which was Islam. And so the major religion in Albania is Islam. About 70% of the Albanians are Muslim. The rest went back to their Greek Orthodox roots or their Roman Catholic roots. And there's a small piece who belong to just random religions. But the majority of the religions in that area are going to be Islam, Greek Orthodox, and Roman Catholic, majority being Islam. Shortly thereafter, in God years, 24 years later, little less, we opened up Kosovo, which used to be part of Yugoslavia, and that whole area, war-torn area. They broke off from Serbia and became Kosovo. The people there are like war-hardened because of what they've had to go through, and it's made them very receptive to the gospel because it's a message of peace. And so we opened Kosovo with great success. We recently went into Macedonia to include that in the mission. And though it's been a difficult transition because these people have never been exposed to the gospel before, the government is very wary of us being there. There's a branch there. The work is growing and it's hastening, just as the Lord predicted. And so with those three countries together now, we call it the Adriatic South Mission. And it all functions under one mission home. And from there, the success in that area is just shooting up compared to where it was 10 years ago. So a little bit of history about that there.
I was called to the Albania Tirana mission. So it was just Albania, that one country. And 6 weeks-ish into my MTC stay, we got an email that it changed to the Adriatic South mission, had expanded to Albania, it had expanded to Kosovo, Macedonia, and then Montenegro. So it got a little bigger, and so they just spread out missionaries. And then about 6 months into my mission, we let Montenegro go, like I said, because no one spoke their language. We gave it to the mission that spoke their language so they could actually teach them a little better than what we were doing. So that's the three countries it really covered. When I got there, we had about 35 missionaries, and then when I ended, we had almost 60, covering three countries. So that's the kind of the size of the missionaries. The units of the church themselves, we were actually in a district, my entire mission. My mission president, President Ford, he had a goal. We got there the first day. He told us by the time he finished his mission as mission president, we were going to have the first stake in the Balkans. And I remember thinking, like, the first day, I told you about the first day I was in their interview, and he told me that, and I was like, well, that's cool, it can't be that hard. And they told me, look, he showed me the numbers, and I was like, we're pretty far off. So we had some work to do. And so, in Tirana is the capital. We had 4 branches in that one city, consisting of one branch had about average of like 80 members, whereas the smallest branch in third branch had, when I served there, we had one Sunday we had 15 members show up. So, big range, 80 to 15. I know some cities up north, they talked about having days where the missionaries, meaning two, outnumbered the members. So one would show up, or I think the most they ever had was 30, and they were stoked. I remember that day. They called us as zone leaders, and they were pretty excited. So it ranges from about some to 100 to 1 or 2 to 15, and so all my mission was trying to prepare for the stake. My mission president would remind us often what we were doing. Every 6 weeks, man, we'd get a call or an interview talking about, remember, that stake's coming up, and he'd give special assignments. We'd get the right amount of priesthood holders, and so I saw it growing in my mission. I saw it growing in my area, or not in my area. I saw my friends, areas growing. I saw it, and it was a good experience. It was an amazing experience, seeing the growth and the light that we were bringing. And then 3 months after I left, I got home. The first stake was made. I think if I remember right, they made 2 wards. So I think they combined a couple branches into a ward, or 2 wards. And then we had a stake. So my mission president went from being the mission president and the district leader over the entire district, or the district president, I guess, to just a mission president. And he called a stake president, and we saw patriarchs called, and we saw the growth of the church and the establishment of it. And it was just, it was a cool experience to see. Even though I was home, I remember seeing it out in the news and just thinking, I don't want to say proud, or like pride, but I was proud that I was there to help. And it was one amazing experience. So Albania was pretty secluded. Not a lot of people in Europe go to Albania because it's a pretty small country. When people go to vacations, they go to Germany or Italy, Switzerland, stuff like that, which is sad because Albania is a beautiful country. But I think if I met anyone that wasn't Albanian in Albania, they were Greek, just boring. So they're boarding states, so they would interchange and go up and down and. Looking for work or whatever they wanted. Most of it was Albanians. So I served in 2012 to 2014 is when I came back. I started in Tirana. Then I went from Tirana to Fier to Elbasan, back to Tirana, and then I went down to Vlor. So I served in the middle to southern half of the country. So I think missionaries, if I remember right, missionaries were first called to, or put in Albania in either 92 or 94. So really new mission. And then all missionaries were actually pulled out from 96 or 97 to 99 or 2000. It was like a 3 to 5 year span because of the civil war that was going on in Kosovo, and there was just danger. So they pulled them out, and then when that cooled down, they put them back in pretty much as soon as they could. So it's only been a mission, and it's only had really LDS influence from missionaries or members since 92 to here, and then missionaries were actually out of that for 5 years. So it's only been a mission for, 18, 19 years?
Well, when I first got in the country, there were 8 elders coming in, all in the same district, and that was a big influx of elders. They lost like 10, but normally they don't get 8 all at once. And there are only maybe 40 to 60 missionaries in the whole mission. So most of my mission, I could, at least the first half for sure, we could name every elder in the whole mission by what city they were serving in, because there were only like 40 or 50 of us and 6 sisters. Which changed by the time that I'd left. They had lowered the age, and so when we were leaving, it was like 6 more coming in and like another scheduled 12, and they bumped up sisters from like 6 to like 16, and so the Adriatic, the Tirana Albania mission, super low numbers. You knew everyone in the mission like very well, and then by the time I left, it was like Adriatic South, bumping up to like 100, 150 elders in the mission. You could go your whole mission without like meeting some of them. So it went from like a very close, tight-knit group to like one of the bigger missions, because missions usually, in my experience, have like 300, 400 elders. Like you can go your whole mission without meeting some of them. The mission president that came in right before me so we were the first group that came in. We came in like 2 or 3 weeks after he got there. And they asked him for I think it was a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan, because he's the mission president for 3 years. And so they said, work out a plan on what you want to accomplish at the end of you serving as mission president. And then 2 years later, what do you want to see? And at the time, it was just a district. And so it's only branches, and it was only from Shkodër, it was the northernmost city, to Vlorë was the southernmost city. And they had missionaries only between those. There's another city that was farther south, Saranda, that didn't have any missionaries. And then there were a couple of like harder to get to cities up north that they just didn't have enough missionaries for it. And so the first mission conference I went to was like maybe 2 or 3 months after I got there, maybe even sooner than that. And the mission president pulled up like a spreadsheet or a presentation. He was like, for my 3-year thing, I want to have it not be a district anymore. I want this mission to have a stake in it. And it was funny because all the old missionaries were used to the old mission president and kind of the status quo, and they were less believing. I had no idea, so I couldn't say I was believing or not, but I didn't seem very likely because it had been a district since like 1990. And so for it to change from a district to a stake in these 3 years without having like built up to it seemed a little far-fetched. But while I was, they opened up Kosovo while I was in the MTC, and so they had the first 2 elders go there, and then my trainer got sent up to Kosovo, which technically wasn't part of our mission yet. So they were like technically outside the mission, but they were kind of like connecting with people there. And then I got sent up there, so I was the 4th into Kosovo as like a young missionary. And the first missionaries that were there were walking down the boulevard, and the only member that we know of in the whole country was Arion Telly, and he stopped and he was like, "Missionaries! I've never seen missionaries in this whole country before." And he had been baptized when he was younger in Albania, and then he grown up, got married to a Kosovar woman, and lived in Kosovo, and the church literally like wasn't there at the time. And so he just kept on living the gospel and waited for the church to expand, and he didn't know about it until he saw missionaries on the boulevard. So that was super cool to have like a member already there, because otherwise there were a couple of like teachers that were Kosovar, but they had moved to America and it got baptized there and come back, and they were doing teaching stuff. They weren't permanently back in Kosovo. But and there was a military base that had members on it, so they would meet as like a group. But Arion Telly kind of opened the way, and I think he's the branch president there now. He opened the way to like be like, this is an American church just because Americans come. It's like a Kosovar. It's not particularly like a particular nation's church. It's just the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And so him coming was super helpful, because the Kosovar people would realize that it wasn't just something that, it wasn't like a fad that was passing through. It was like something that was like good for Kosovars as well as Americans, which is cool. The basic history, every person on the street will tell you this in the first 5 minutes you talk to them. They were part of the Ottoman Empire, and they were conquered by the Turks, for 500 years, and then roughly, and then when the Ottoman Empire receded, the Emperor Hoja took over and enacted a communist regime and destroyed like all the churches. The whole country was deemed atheist. There were 2 dialects, the northern dialect and the southern dialect, and he was from the south, and so that's why that's the primary like written language now. And so like anyone born after like 1940, 1930 wasn't allowed to have, like, grew up without religion, except for like occasionally there'd be like a grandma or a grandfather who had, they'd like do Easter, but it was like super secret. Like if they got caught, they would go to prison for practicing any faith. And a lot of the churches and mosques and everything were demolished. So Emperor Hoja fell out of power in like 1990 or so, and the leaders of the country told everyone in the like everyone in the country to invest their money into the economy so that they could get like a capitalist culture going. And I think that was the first missionaries that got sent in, was during the 1990s, and then 1992 or around there, all the leaders took all the money they invested and fled the country. And so there were like tons of riots. They had to extract the missionaries until the riots could calm down, and then they went back, like I think 1994, roughly. And I think they might have pulled in missionaries from Germany when they did that, because the first couple of missionaries, like the ones that were there, we had like a 20-year reunion, and they said they were in Germany, and they got pulled down to Albania, and they said, learn Albanian as fast as you can and see how much you can teach. So the normal, like, anyone between like between 20 and 40 may or may not have grown up with any religion whatsoever. So approaching it, they don't really have like if they're Muslim, it's usually because like their grandparents are Muslim, they don't really practice, or Christian, their grandparents are Christian. And so they approach the gospel in a way that most people can't do because they have been going to a church or have belonged to a church all their lives, and it's like, I don't know, like when Facebook came along, nothing had happened like Facebook before. And so it was like an interesting thing to look into. And so a lot of times when you're teaching the gospel, they like, this is the first time they're hearing it, and it in my opinion, it helps to have like a lot greater effect on people's hearts when they're hearing it for the first time, and it's not something that they've heard over and over and over. And so it's technically part of the European like area, but it's, as far as I know, it's like one of the highest baptizing, just because the people are so open about religion. They say the religion of Albania is Albania because they just believe in like their country, and anything more than that they don't really have a great knowledge of. I didn't realize how lucky I was. I had a native trainer. He was the only native in the mission. And so when he talked to people, we would get lessons. So we'd street contact, which is I didn't realize how different it was until the first zone conference, and people were asking like, oh, what are some good finding activities? And they are like, you're new, like what have you been doing? And they'd mention like, do you do English classes? Or I was like, no, we go street contact for like 2 hours, and then we fill up our day with people that we meet and teach lessons, the rest of the people. And normally it's like street contact for like 8 hours and get like maybe 2 lessons out of it. One of the transfers, we street contacted every day, like 8 hours a day for a whole month, and we got 1 lesson out of it, out of that whole time. So it kind of depends on luck, or I guess the one person that we found was super, like took us back to his family. We were able to like teach the whole family and stuff, so that was totally worth it. But it's hard to judge like, oh, I'm going to get 6 lessons today, or I'm going to get 0 for a month. Like you can't really tell. And the same way with tracting, like I guess that's kind of the same as it is everywhere. I don't know. I only served in Albania, but finding activities were like English lessons. You could usually get a pretty good group of people in English lessons, especially if it's like Schroeder, my last area, had a few like schools that were pretty close to where we met, and so the kids would just come after school and come to English class. The White Handbook says, don't bring a backpack, bring a backpack. The Jehovah's Witness missionaries in Albania all have shoulder bags, and so anytime you're wearing a shoulder bag, it's like instantly you're Jehovah's Witness, you're not LDS.
What about like a handbag?
Handbag is probably fine as well. you probably want your hands free. The sidewalks are not even, and so anything you're holding may or may not get thrown down as you fall because you catch your foot on something. I had either 2 or 3 pairs. I think I had 2 pairs of shoes when I got into the mission. I destroyed both in 6 months. And then I got a pair of Echoes, and I still wear them today, and they're doing great. So Echoes is a solid brand if you want to invest in like solid shoes that you know you won't have to replace after 6 months. Yeah, Echoes for sure, because that was like the biggest thing. Everything else you can pretty much get in Albania. But good shoes, decent clothing that is higher quality clothing is easier to get here.
So the church itself, I believe they got a stake going on 2 years ago this March. So we're at the 2-year anniversary of that. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wards, I think. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 branches in Albania alone. That's not counting Kosovo. And I've heard like some different things about what's going on in Kosovo right now. I'm not really for sure. I think people, when they get that kind of mentality, like when they hear like Eastern Europe, they might think like, oh, people aren't going to listen to you as much because they're so like dead in their roots or something like that, or they're not willing to listen. But I think the thing that we found in Albania is that the Albanian people themselves are really, really humble from different circumstances where they may be. And we always were able to find people willing to listen, and there was a lot of missionaries who had a lot of success over there. And so, and I think like as far as like the religious background of a lot of people, the overall majority is Muslim. Well, they'll tell you they're Muslim. I'd say maybe like a small percentage of that is actually practicing Muslim. And that came for like, it was like they were under like Turkish rule for like 500 years. And with that came like the Ottoman Empire, and they were under a lot of Muslim control. And then it was like they got free, and then they had their dictator Enver Hoxha come in, and he declared the national religion as atheism, and communism came in. And so you ran into a lot of people. If you ran into like a lot of the older generation, you'd always ask a lot of people like, are you a believer? Like, what do you believe? And all this stuff. And some people will say like, I'm Muslim. Some people will say I'm Orthodox. Some people will say I'm Catholic. You get like a person who would say, oh, I'm atheist. And then you have some people who be like, oh, I'm a communist. So the older generation still has that kind of mentality and stuff. But I would say it was around, I think it was like 1992 is when they opened up Albania again to churches. And that's when the church actually went back in. And yeah, and I think it's just because with a whole bunch of churches coming in and everything, a lot more people were kind of like, oh, and if you ask any Albanian, they'll tell you the history of Albania, like from Turkish rule to how their hero Skanderbeu took him down, and then to Enver Hoxha. So if you ever want to know the history of Albania, just ask an Albanian, they'll be glad to tell you the whole thing. But I think with all that kind of commotion with religious stuff and everything, for some people it keeps them a little open-minded. Some people are kind of closed-minded to a lot of things. But in the end, people they're really nice, really respectful people, and they're always willing to listen to you. I would say if I can go back, I would try to. I felt like sometimes I wasn't focusing enough on the people, like the actual person in front of me, and that I never, like I tried, there's a lot of times where I tried to see where they're coming from, but sometimes I'd just be like, why aren't they accepting what I'm saying? Why da-da-da-da? And I would think more like me instead of like thinking like from their perspective. And so if I can go back, I'd probably try to see like things more through their eyes. And as far as like temples go, we're actually getting really excited because the Rome, Italy temple is going to be open right now. Well, not right now. It's going to be open sometime. They've been saying different dates for a while. I know they've been having some issues. But because right now they all go to the Frankfurt, Germany temple. And that's a 600 euro trip. And if you're coming from like a poor country like Albania, that's really tough on a lot of people. So that's going to be really, really exciting because they go from this plane ride to a simple boat ride across the Adriatic Sea to be able to go. And I remember I was talking with the stake president in Albania one time, and he was talking about how he's already planning like trips for the youth to go do baptisms in the temple. And I think that itself will help like build what the member, like, because you have a lot of really good members, but I think with the youth you're going to have a lot of growth. I think them having like their eyes set on the temple, not only eyes set on temple, but being able to go to temple at least once and then coming back, they have like that goal in mind, and I think that will really help the overall church growth in that area. But the church itself, I mean, it's small, obviously. It's only been there for 24 years now, and but from what I'm hearing, I get a lot of emails from the missionaries over there, and they're starting to open up new areas, and it's growing. So I served from 2012 2014 January. I actually got back December 30th 2013. It was a little deal, but so I served in Vlor. Then I went to Elbasan. Then I went to Tirana for a little bit. Then I went to Fier, Lushnia, and then I finished my mission off back in Elbasan.